Every November, millions of American families gather around a roasted turkey and open a tin can. Out slides a trembling, dark red cylinder of cranberry sauce, perfectly molded by aluminum ribs. It is a laboratory creation, drowning in high fructose corn syrup and stripped entirely of its wild ancestral soul. We accept this gelatinous, factory-made imitation as tradition. But what if I told you that our ancestors possessed a harvest far superior to the fragile, bog-grown berries of the frozen north? A plant that does not demand icy winters, chemical fertilizers, or meticulous care. A relentless botanical survivor that actually thrives in the blistering 100-degree heat of midsummer, exactly when every other crop in your garden has withered into a brittle husk. It yields a crimson harvest so potent, so rich in blood-red vitality, that it was once a literal lifeline for early pioneers and a sacred medicine for those who endured the unimaginable. Today, the agricultural giants and fluorescent-lit supermarkets have completely erased it from your memory. They need you to believe that tart, preserving fruit comes exclusively from a factory, not from a towering, resilient bush you can grow in the poorest, sun-baked dirt of your own backyard. Why did they banish the true king of the summer garden to the forgotten, dusty pages of history? Welcome to ancestral soil. The archive opens not in the misty, freezing bogs of New England, but beneath the unforgiving white-hot sun of West Africa, centuries ago. Here, in earth baked as hard as fractured clay pottery, a magnificent plant forged its iron will. Known to the scientific world as Hibiscus sabdariffa, it did not merely endure the scorching heat, it actively devoured it. But its true, harrowing test of survival was yet to come. This plant did not arrive in the Americas safely tucked inside the velvet-lined wooden chests of luxury merchant vessels. Its seeds crossed the Atlantic Ocean in the darkest, most desperate holds of the transatlantic slave ships. Mothers, facing the terrifying abyss of the unknown, secretly braided these tiny, resilient seeds deep into the hair of their daughters. They knew that wherever they were taken, no matter how brutal the conditions, this seed would take root and keep their children alive. It was a botanical stowaway, carrying the very essence of survival across an ocean of suffering, destined to bleed its red vitality into a strange new world. By the time early pioneers, homesteaders, and Florida crackers pushed deep into the American South, they were met with a brutal, unforgiving reality. The delicate heirloom seeds of carrots, turnips, and European berries they had brought with them simply burned alive. The relentless subtropical scorch and the blinding, nutrient-starved white sand turned their northern gardening dreams into ash. They were starving for sustenance, desperate for medicine, and battling the ravages of scurvy. They desperately needed the sharp, preserving, vitamin-rich bite of the northern cranberry, but that fragile plant could never survive this southern inferno. And then from that bone-dry, scorching dirt rose the immigrant bush. While tomatoes wilted and corn stalks turned to brown paper, the roselle threw up massive blood-red stems stretching 7 feet into the blazing sky. It drove a thick taproot deep through the hardened earth, hunting for the faintest trace of moisture, completely mocking the devastating drought. Where the earth offered absolutely nothing, this giant produced thousands of swollen, ruby-like calyces. These were not fragile flower petals, but thick, fleshy, armor-like shields protecting the seed pods, bursting with a tart, vibrant, life-saving juice. The settlers quickly learned from the enslaved populations how to harness this botanical miracle. They called it the Florida Cranberry. It became their daily medicine, their essential winter preserves, and the deep crimson-red tea that cooled their boiling blood during the dog days of August. Imagine the sensory memory of those autumn harvests. Hands stained a deep, permanent maroon from peeling back the crisp, acidic calyces. The crackle of a wood fire beneath a massive cast-iron kettle where the red harvest was boiled down, filling the humid air with a sharp, earthy, and mouth-watering aroma. It was reduced into a thick, jewel-toned jelly that would sustain families through the bleakest, harshest winters. For generations, from the humid islands of the Caribbean stretching all the way up through the Carolinas, no homestead was considered complete without this towering red sentinel standing guard in the yard. It was not a mere grocery item. It was a living testament to human endurance, a symbol of defiance, and the ultimate triumph of survival. So how does a plant of such immense power simply vanish from the American landscape? It was not wiped out by a devastating blight, a sudden freeze, or a violent shift in the climate. It was systematically erased by the most insidious weapon of the modern age: industrial convenience. As the post-war agricultural-industrial complex rose, corporate giants looked at the self-sufficient American homestead and saw a direct threat to their profits. Why let families harvest their own vitamin-rich medicine when you could sell them a vacuum-sealed tin can for pennies? They weaponized your palate. They drowned the tart, wild flavor of nature in massive vats of genetically modified high-fructose corn syrup. They replaced the deep, blood-red anthocyanins of the pioneer's harvest with the artificial petroleum-derived glare of red dye 40. In the face of this heavily marketed illusion of progress, the towering Florida cranberry was simply abandoned. The ultimate survival plant was relegated to the tragic status of a nuisance weed, its history completely forgotten. We quietly traded our botanical independence for a tin can. But the truth, firmly rooted in the dirt, cannot be hidden forever. Today, modern clinical science is finally catching up to the desperate wisdom of enslaved Africans and rugged pioneers. Researchers and medical journals are now staring into their microscopes, utterly stunned by the biochemical payload of Hibiscus sabdariffa. They are realizing that the forgotten poor man's cranberry is, in fact, an absolute nutritional juggernaut. When scientists analyzed those thick, fleshy red calyces, they did not just find a refreshing ingredient for a summer drink. They found an impenetrable fortress of human health. The Florida cranberry is overflowing with massive doses of ascorbic acid, delivering a surge of vitamin C exactly when the body is depleted by heat exhaustion. It is packed with essential calcium, iron, and riboflavin, elements critical for basic human survival. But the true scientific marvel lies within its violently red pigment. That deep crimson color is a dense, highly concentrated reserve of anthocyanins. These are powerful, disease-fighting antioxidants that actively wage war against cellular decay and dangerous inflammation in the human body. In recent years, rigorous clinical trials have exposed a reality that the modern pharmaceutical industry would likely prefer you ignore. Medical studies have definitively demonstrated that the daily consumption of roselle tea can naturally and significantly lower blood pressure in adults suffering from hypertension. It acts as a potent natural diuretic and an ACE inhibitor, relaxing the blood vessels without the devastating cascade of chemical side effects. The early settlers did not know the clinical terms antioxidant or ACE inhibitor. They only knew that the bitter, ruby-red tea made their hearts beat stronger, cleared their minds, and kept the sickness at bay when the world around them was burning. Modern science has now fully vindicated the Florida cranberry. It is not a weed. It is a highly efficient, drought-proof medicine cabinet that thrives exactly when you need it the most. So how do we physically reclaim this botanical giant? The answer is exact, yet far simpler than the agricultural industry wants you to believe. You do not need a climate-controlled greenhouse or expensive chemical-laden fertilizers. You only need a patch of earth, a little patience, and the willingness to let the summer sun do its violent work. Wait until the absolute final frost of spring has passed. Do not rush. Wait until the soil is deeply, comfortably warm, at least 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Press the seeds just half an inch into the dirt. And give them space. Do not crowd this plant because it demands at least 3 feet of breathing room. Given that space, this immigrant survivor will stretch its crimson branches 7 feet high and just as wide. Once it takes root, you step back. It is a true zero-maintenance crop. While your tomatoes wilt and your cucumbers surrender to the July inferno, the roselle actively drinks the heat. But you must understand its ancient clock. The Florida cranberry is triggered by the fading light of the year. Roughly 100 to 120 days after you bury that seed, as the late summer days finally begin to shorten, the true harvest reveals itself. First, pale, delicate flowers will open, but they will survive for only a single day before dropping to the dirt. Do not mourn the flower. Watch what remains on the rugged stem. The thick, fleshy base, the calyx, will begin to swell aggressively around the hidden seed pod. It will turn a violent, brilliant ruby red. That is your target. Snap them off with your bare hands. Feel the dense, fleshy armor that stubbornly protects the seeds inside. Peel that vibrant red armor away and discard the pod. Toss those brilliant crimson calyces into a cast-iron pot of boiling water. Watch as the water instantly bleeds into the color of deep, rich, ancestral wine. Sweeten it with raw honey, chill it over ice, and drink the exact same medicinal, blood-cooling tea that kept pioneers alive. Or simmer it down, slowly and deliberately, until it thickens into a tart, vibrant, life-sustaining jelly. A jelly that has never seen the inside of a sterile aluminum can or a high-fructose corn syrup factory. By planting this single towering bush, you are not just growing a summer crop, you're staging a quiet, incredibly powerful rebellion right in your own backyard. You are decisively cutting the tether to the processed food empire. You are resurrecting the forgotten resilience of those who bled and sweated on this land long before us. The climate may continue to shift, and modern supply chains will always remain fragile. But true, unbreakable food security does not come from a grocery store shelf. It comes from the dirt beneath your feet and the seeds of survival you choose to sow. Knowledge is not lost. It is waiting for you.